Beijing's military leaders developed a risky plan to target the American naval fleet. Exactly at 7:42 a.m. on July 12, 2025, three Chinese Y-20 transport aircraft suddenly began their mission against the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier group. They moved through open waters near Guam, appearing like normal cargo planes to all detection equipment. What the US naval forces couldn't see was that for 31 minutes, these planes had been secretly dropping hundreds of small unmanned aircraft into the air like invisible shadows, watching every move of the American ships below. The morning was sunny and calm. No bad weather, no warnings, just routine patrol work in the Philippine Sea. But in the next 3.5 minutes, what started as normal duties became the most complex multi-level ambush ever seen in modern naval combat. A simple military drill was about to turn into one of history's most important turning points, a moment that would bring the world closer to global war. Moving at high altitude, three Chinese Y-20 cargo aircraft entered international airspace, broadcasting normal civilian signals to American satellites and radar systems. They appeared harmless, transport planes following regular routes, but their load would change everything. Soon after, from their open doors, a swarm of robotic stealth machines was released. Nearly 100 of them, shaped like ocean rays and coated in radar-hiding materials, they sailed silently toward the USS Gerald R. Ford battle group, located hundreds of miles southeast of Guam. At sea level, another strike wave advanced. Four H-6K bomber planes flying very low dropped special floating units filled with signal jamming gear. These units created a wall of interference across all radio channels, cutting off radar and satellite links within a 60-mile zone. This wasn't a typical strike. It was an electronic ambush, carefully designed and deliberately confusing. Then the main strike force appeared. 16 J-16 fighter jets, hidden by the jamming cloud, descended from medium height and launched YJ-91 anti-radar missiles at the fleet's outer air defense systems. These weren't random hits. They were meant to cripple the American ships before any countermove could begin. From top and bottom, the strike was executed in a pincer movement, stealth planes diving from great height, missiles racing just inches above the ocean surface. The entire operation was synchronized to the precise moment. Each strike element worked with others, forcing the American defense system to split its attention in all directions. For 3 minutes and 40 seconds, the sky over the Philippine Sea became a crazy show of speed, stealth, and noise. The Chinese strike team had pulled off something the world had never seen before, a multi-level overwhelming attack using decoy targets, drones, invisible technology, and electronic warfare all mixed together. No advance notice, no formal announcement, just a calculated assault. Beijing aimed for complete surprise. Observe the remarkably fast reaction of the world's most powerful defense system. Please help us by pressing like, subscribing, and leaving your thoughts in the comments. During the chaos caused by China's focused attack, the US fleet had only seconds to react, but it didn't need more time because the system had already spotted it coming. Aboard the USS Princeton, the Aegis defense network came alive like a command center during high alert. While Chinese jammers flooded the airways, E-2D Hawkeye warning aircraft, already airborne, shifted to backup radar bands, cutting through the electronic static like a knife through fog. Within seconds, threats were identified. Data from Hawkeye's radar fed into the Cooperative Engagement System, CC, instantly updating the fire control computers of every ship in the battle group. The fleet's outer shield came online. From the USS Chancellorsville, 8 SM-6 interceptor missiles shot straight up, climbing high before turning to engage incoming projectiles. Meanwhile, CIWS gun systems began rotating, tracking low-flying drones with incredible precision, the air filled with contrails, tracers, and detonations. In the distance, FA-18 Super Hornets, already on routine patrol, got target data through secure links and flew straight into the drone cloud, firing AN-120 missiles with deadly accuracy. Clusters of Chinese stealth drones were eliminated in mid-flight before reaching the carrier's defense perimeter. Below deck, the USS Gerald R. Ford's combat center shifted to full battle readiness. Crew members sealed blast doors. Damage control teams took positions, but the defensive wall was already functioning. The multi-tier protection network, planes in the air, Aegis at sea, fighters overhead, and close-in weapons on deck had performed flawlessly under stress. One Chinese missile broke through and struck the USS Chancellorsville, damaging its radar mast, but every other projectile and drone was intercepted before impact. It wasn't just luck, it was preparation. Years of investment in networked warfare, layered defense, and rapid response weapons had paid off in mere minutes. Even under cover of jamming, deception, and massive numbers, American systems talked to each other instantly, adapting, locking on, and eliminating threats with frightening efficiency. China had hoped to surprise. Instead, they found themselves facing a fleet that not only survived, but was already preparing to strike back. Are you still following? Great, because next is when America shows the world the true power of modern weapons and technology. At 8:11 a.m., just 29 minutes after the first Chinese drone showed up on radar, the battle group's mission changed from protection to retaliation. Inside the command room of USS Gerald R. Ford, a red alert light blinked above the tactical display. Strike authorization confirmed. Washington had approved the response. What followed wasn't a simple counterstrike, it was a coordinated, multi-platform revenge unlike anything ever witnessed in Pacific waters. First to deploy were the F-35C Lightning fighters, 24 of them launched in under 6 minutes. Their takeoff sequence managed by the Ford's electromagnetic catapult systems. Invisible to radar, they flew in wedge formation, hugging the sea surface before dividing into 3 teams. Air superiority, deep strike, and electronic support. Right after, FA-18 Super Hornets thundered skyward in pairs, loaded with AGM-58 JASSM long-range missiles. Each plane carried weapons that could punch through hardened targets from over 500 miles away, but the air component was only one piece of the answer. From the USS Zumwalt, 80 miles to the east, experimental electromagnetic railguns, once considered theoretical, fired hypervelocity projectiles at incredible speeds towards shore-based radar sites on Hainan Island. Traveling at over 7 times sound speed, the tungsten rounds needed no warheads. Their kinetic energy alone was devastating. At the same time, 6 MQ-9 Reaper drones cruised at 45,000 feet, mapping Chinese radar positions and electronic signatures linked to satellites and F-35C data networks. They provided real-time battlefield awareness. Every launcher, every radar building, every command bunker was tagged. Then came the missiles from 3 Arleigh Burke destroyers. 28 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles erupted skyward almost simultaneously, each one banked in flight before dropping to low-altitude courses programmed with terrain-matching guidance. They would hit their objectives from over 1,000 miles with less than 10-foot accuracy. Target list included the Longkorn Air Base in Fujian, home of the J-16 attackers, a radar complex near Lingshui on Hainan Island, multiple military fuel depots and satellite relay stations along the southeast coast. At wavetop level, EA-18G Groral electronic warfare planes began jamming Chinese communications, while U.S. Navy P-8A patrol planes tracked enemy submarines emerging from nearby ports. It was no longer a battle, it was a demonstration of coordination, reach, and overwhelming force. Every layer of American power had been unleashed: stealth aircraft, cruise missiles, drone surveillance, electromagnetic weapons, and satellite-guided command networks, all executed with a tempo that gave China no chance to react. And as the final wave of planes vanished into the eastern horizon, one thing became clear. The United States hadn't just weathered the attack, it had answered with a message written in precision fire. Let's look at the serious damage to China. The strike didn't detonate. It unfolded like a steel fist closing over a war map. At 8:49 a.m., the first Tomahawk crossed into Chinese airspace over Fujian province. It was cruising just 50 feet above ground level, weaving around hills, trees, and radar beams. The navigation system wasn't looking for grid points. It was looking for terrain matching every ridge shape, every shoreline curve, like a computer that memorized the planet. It struck Hangar C at Longklien Air Base, punching through the ceiling and detonating with clinical precision. Inside were 6 J-20 stealth fighters, still on alert status. When the smoke lifted, the hangar was just twisted framework and molten metal. 27 seconds later, a tungsten slug from a Zumwalt railgun pierced the underground command bunker of the same facility. Not destroyed, pierced, concrete didn't shatter. It imploded inward, collapsing downward like a crushed can. On Hainan Island, a satellite relay station, vital for real-time battle coordination, simply went dark. From orbit, US satellites watched it vanish like a bulb switching off in the night. By 9:07 a.m., the Chinese Southern Theater Command had lost 37 combat aircraft, J-20, J-16, and JH-7, either obliterated or damaged beyond use. 8 military fuel farms consumed by fireballs visible from space. 2 hardened command posts, now nothing but charred concrete shells. An estimated 400 personnel, some killed, many injured, others cut off from main command and stumbling lost inside crippled bases. There was no massive blast, no dramatic collapse, just sudden communication silence. One Chinese colonel, trapped under the debris of a destroyed radar tower, managed to transmit one last encoded message. They observe all. We cannot see. Local residents filmed columns of black smoke rising like towers from another world. Their videos flooded social networks before censors could act, and throughout the South China Sea, vessels of the People's Liberation Army Navy sat motionless, sensors active, weapons ready. But nobody knew where to point, because in less than 1 hour, the American counterattack had eliminated the command network, blinded the sensors, and torched the fuel that China would need to keep fighting. By 9:30 a.m., the silence from Chinese command centers had become deafening, not just to Beijing but to the entire globe. At the Pentagon, senior defense officials gathered in the National Military Command Center. Live satellite footage confirmed the scope of destruction. Air bases reduced to skeletal frames, fuel storage still blazing, command centers silent. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs leaned back and uttered just 6 words: "We must manage the narrative." Half a world away, Beijing erupted in panic. Official state television broadcast pre-taped clips of PLA naval drills denying any engagement, but intercepted private messages showed something entirely different: a scramble to assess the damage scale, count remaining resources, and most importantly, respond without triggering a regional conflict. At 10:00 a.m. Beijing time, China's foreign ministry contacted the US ambassador, condemning Washington for an extreme, provocative act of war. Yet, behind locked doors, Chinese commanders were demanding answers, not from America, but from their own shattered command system. Meanwhile, the ripple effect spread outward. Japan placed its entire self-defense force on heightened readiness, powering up missile sites in Okinawa. Australia dispatched 2 destroyers to reinforce the US 7th Fleet. South Korea scrambled F-35 wings and deployed Patriot batteries along its southern border. Taiwan went quiet. Every airstrip, every radar antenna, every taxiway operational but waiting. At NATO headquarters in Brussels, an urgent session was convened. The Secretary-General declared bluntly, "This represents the gravest military confrontation between nuclear nations in the 21st century." Readiness levels across Europe climbed to DEFCON 3 equivalent, while cyber defense teams in Germany, France, and the UK began scanning for signs of retaliatory strikes in cyberspace. Even Russia, observing silently from the north, moved 3 ballistic missile submarines from Vladivostok into deep water. It announced nothing, but the signal was clear: "We're watching." On world markets, crude oil surged past $120 per barrel. Carriers re-rated flights, tech shares plummeted, gold soared, and in homes across America, millions of elderly citizens, many veterans of past conflicts, sat still, watching the headlines crawl across their televisions, because for the first time in generations, one terrifying question returned: is the world one mistake away from war? The smoke may have lifted, the missiles may have stopped flying, but what this confrontation exposed will resonate far beyond the Pacific. In just under 1 hour, the world saw how modern combat is no longer fought over days or weeks. It's measured in minutes, in data streams, and in computer-to-computer choices. The Chinese strike was swift, sophisticated, and eerily silent, but America's response, layered, integrated, and lethal, did more than endure. It dominated. Yet success in battle is not success in peace. The price of such a clash extends beyond the harm inflicted. Faith is shattered. Diplomacy freezes. The power balance has moved, not in geography, but in understanding. For generations, the Pacific Ocean was a barrier. Now it's a tripwire. Washington may have demonstrated its capability and resolve, but the question lingers: how many more boundaries can be crossed before one ignites something unstoppable? And for us, citizens, veterans, families observing from thousands of miles away, The message is chilling. Prevention only functions when the opponent believes you'll act, and survival now relies not just on strength but on speed, precision and solidarity. This was not World War III, but it was a rehearsal. If you found this analysis valuable,